Hello everyone, Artemu the Violet Wizard here, and today we're playing more of the Pokémon FireRed Nuzlocke. Last time we managed to get not one, but 2 gym badges, after we defeated the leaders of Fuchsia City and Saffron City. So that was quite the exciting session we did. A bit on the short side compared to some of our others, but we still got a lot done, so I am pretty satisfied with how that went. And this time, we got ourselves a lot we're going to be doing. Now, I intend for this to be a pretty chill stream, all things considered. The main focus this time is going to be catching some Pokemon that are now available to us, now that we have the ability to finally surf across water. But it still means that we're going to be doing quite a bit to progress in this adventure, as our next target is somewhere that we can only reach by crossing water. So I want to quickly show a couple of things that I did to prepare for this session. So namely, one thing that I did, we can check our Pokemon's items right now. So I went to the game corner and I bought the items that are able to buff the power of certain attacks. So now Aether is equipped with the Mystic Water to increase damage to his water moves. And Raditz is now holding a Miracle Seed, which will increase the damage of his grass attacks. And they're not in the party right now, but Kindle, our Arcanine, is also holding the Charcoal to boost fire damage, which is pretty good. But that is not the only thing that I did to prepare for this session. So what I want to do is go into the box, because I want to show you the things that I did. So we check our box here. I took the liberty of evolving every single Pokemon that we currently have in the box. So all of our potential teammates that we have gained over the course of the last couple of sessions is now fully evolved, including some of the more interesting ones. So Ghost Nappa is now a Gengar, which is definitely very nice for him. I used the Leaf Stone we picked up in the Safari Zone to evolve Sunnyside, our Exeggutor. Well, he was an Execute, but now we evolved him into an Exeggutor, which is very nice. But you may have noticed 2 of our Pokemon are definitely pretty interesting. So Andreas is now evolved into Politoed, and Mystery, our Seadra, is now evolved into Kingdra. Now, normally you would not be able to obtain these Pokemon during the main story of Fire Red and Leaf Green, as besides the fact that you can't evolve a Kanto Pokemon into a Johto Pokemon until you get the National Pokedex, these are also trade item evolutions, where you need a specific item to be able to obtain these Pokemon. However, the application that I use in order to be able to evolve trade evolution Pokemon like Gengar and Golem, it also just makes the Pokemon that would normally require items to be traded to evolve, it just makes them normal evolutions. So yeah, we got some pretty nifty Pokemon that you wouldn't normally be able to obtain while playing through Fire Red and Leaf Green normally. But hey, I just felt like that would be an interesting thing for us to have on this adventure. And like, these are some pretty cool Pokemon. There'll be some really nice backup in case something were to happen to Aether. Which hopefully nothing does. He's really tanky, so we should be able to weather whatever we're going to be facing as we continue our journey. Yeah, that is definitely a lot of cool new developments with our Pokemon roster here. Definitely very cool. And we'll definitely be obtaining some more Pokemon that will be... I'll definitely want to spend a lot of time training up in between the next sessions. So I forget exactly when I have another day off, but it should be pretty soon next week. And we'll probably be dedicating some more time to raising up our Pokemon in between sessions, because we still got a lot more levels we need to get before we are finally done this adventure. So I'm going to be going with this team for the time being. Special note, you definitely want to teach a Pokemon Surf in order to progress through these next areas. And the case of Aether, he is definitely a very good pick here. Since water is his native element, it also makes Surf a really good damaging attack for him. There are other Pokemon that can learn Surf, not just water types. For example, Snorlax is able to learn Surf for whatever reason. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of interesting choices, and there's certainly no shortage of water Pokemon in this region, especially if you are playing, especially because you get the fishing rods really early on, but yeah, at this point you should have plenty of water Pokemon to be able to carry you across the water. But yeah, for this leg of our adventure, we are back on Route 19. As this is going to be an area where we can potentially catch a new Pokemon. And of course, this area has a ton of trainers for us to fight. I look at the sea to forget all the bad things that happened. God, you and me too, man. I know how most people feel this way, but I've always been someone who has a natural affinity with water, and especially going to the beach and just gazing out at the lake or the ocean. It just really helps to calm me, especially when the sun is setting. I just see it illuminate the sky and the water. Just, my god, it is just a transcendent feeling just to experience that. Nature is really beautiful when you just relax and take in the sights, you know? Definitely something that helps to calm me down when things are going on. And also just, you know, a nice capper to whatever sort of trip that I'm doing in those areas. Some kind of a landlocked area here in Canada, but I do like going out to one of the Great Lakes every now and then. It's very nice to take a trip there. Though, sadly, these years I haven't really had a lot of opportunities to go and visit one of the lakes, but sometime soon I would definitely enjoy going for a little trip. It's getting to splash around in the water. I used to swim a lot when I was a kid, so yeah, I definitely have a lot of affinity with that element. In fact, water is my favorite element when it comes to most games, especially Pokemon. It's really cool, has a lot of neat sort of tricks to it, and yeah, just have a real affinity with this element, especially in Pokemon, because there are just so many water Pokemon, and I know, like, most of them are just, you know, fish, but there are a lot of other cool examples. Like, we got the otter Pokemon, Weasel and Floatzel, later on. And there's a frickin' legendary Pokemon that's a martial art bear. And that thing, for whatever reason, is a water type. Oh, man. A lot of modern Pokemon designs are pretty wacky. Also like that in the later generations, they have a lot of Pokemon based off of sea creatures, like Electros and Pincurchin and Graplocked. But despite them being sea creatures and obviously living in the water, they're not actually water-type Pokemon, which I find pretty cool with them. Also, Khalifa, you are taking some big hits here. Yeah, that confusion is really not doing us any favors. Sarah, you can eliminate the jellyfish for us, please. But yeah, I definitely like a lot of water-type Pokemon, and especially some of the aquatic Pokemon that aren't water types. Then again, there are also a few that I'm not really a big fan of, like, never been a real fan of Luvdisc or Finneon. But, you know, everyone has their likes and dislikes. Perfectly valid. Alright, finishing off with a Goldeen. I want to save our psychic power points, so we'll go for Headbutt. Not really. You're not making this easy for me, Mr. Swimmer. Yeah, we really haven't been fighting too many of this trainer class, but yeah, we have swimmers. Obviously, they specialize in water-type Pokemon, so expect to find those on their teams, and you can easily counter them with any grass or electric type. They'll have a really easy time against these guys. And also, while you're surfing on the water, you can also encounter water-type Pokemon here. So obviously, carrying around the electric and grass types are good for dealing with a Pokemon around here. You know, if you don't want to use any repels, but that's still a good option for this area. Since at this point, yeah, there's going to be a lot of low-level Pokemon we can find here. Actually, kind of interesting that while you're surfing in this game, there's a good chance you could encounter some Pokemon that are level 5. Despite the fact that we are so late into this adventure, and we needed to fight a level 43 Pokemon just to be able to gain the ability to surf anyway. Belly flop! Yes, you certainly did, sir. But yeah, it's not really that much of a big deal for us. Yeah, Raditz, you can go into lead here. So we got a lot we can see around here in the water. My big sis taught me how to swim and train Pokemon. So we got another example of a double battle opportunity here. Sis and Bro, Leah, and Luke. So this is actually a pairing that first appeared in Ruby and Sapphire. It's very nice to see another one of these double battle situations here. So we got ourselves Goldeen and its evolution Seaking. So that's quite the interesting pairing here. Seaking obviously is a much stronger Goldeen. Its main focus is attack though, which as a water type in this generation isn't really the best. As I said before, this Pokemon does get some better moves in the later generations that definitely make it more viable. Like this thing can get Horn Drill, Smart Strike, Mega Horn. It definitely has a lot of good options in the later games that make it somewhat more usable than it is here, but yeah, its stats really aren't all that special. So it's kind of hard to recommend over some of the more interesting water Pokemon. But with that said, I did actually use a Seaking. Ooh, there's a lot of trainers here. As I was saying, I actually did use a Seaking back in my blue Nuzlocke back in the day. And just remembering all of the previous Nuzlocke comics that I got to read over the years, I always like to joke to myself that I was like one of 3 people who ever used the Goldeen line in a Nuzlocke run. And I did use that Seaking in quite a few battles. And it was even one of the big players of the next gym that we are going to see. So obviously it had some good utility. It just wasn't, you know, a Pokemon that I was planning on using throughout the game. Just until I trained up some more water Pokemon we caught later on. But he was still good for the amount of time that we used him. So, yep, that's all I want to say on that. Still a pretty interesting Pokemon to bring in for a Nuzlocke run, because, you know, it's one of the more underpowered Pokemon, and it would be definitely very nice when you're doing one of these runs, and you manage to just really click with a Pokemon that you don't see a lot of Pokemon use. Like, as I said, I hardly ever see people seriously consider using Seaking, but it can be effective. Any Pokemon, really, can be good when given the right amount of time and attention to making them strong. Speaking of strong Pokemon here, we got Tentacool. It's the evolution of Tentacool, and man, I love this thing. Even though I hardly get to use this thing in the Gen 1 games, because you can only obtain it so late into the adventure, but man, it is a good one. It's a very bulky special tank. It's pretty fast, has a lot of good offensive power. And since it's a poison type, that also gives it the ability to poison targets, which is obviously pretty useful. Again, an example of how there are so many poison types in this region. But you know, Tentacool is cool. Definitely a pretty awesome line of Pokemon, since they're the only water poison types introduced in this game. We would get a lot more later on, like Quillfish and Marini, which are good in their own rights, but yeah, Tentacruel, definitely one of my favorites. It is just a really good Pokemon, which is surprising for how common it is, because, yeah, when you're surfing, Tentacool are typically the Pokemon you're going to see the most. At least when you're in saltwater environments, like we are in now. Ooh, dangerous. Yes, I certainly was. And you, sir? Aren't. Alright, Coilette, you'll take the next one. I swam here with my friends. I'm tired. Yeah, it's also kind of an interesting thing with this series. It's never been confirmed if the player character is able to swim, and with the fact that they require needing to have a Pokemon cross the water with them, yeah, seems to imply they never learned how to swim, which is certainly an interesting fact with these player characters. I mean, there are some interesting variations they do with crossing water in some of the later games. Like, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee has you surfing on a surfboard with your Pikachu, kind of like a Lilo and Stitch thing going on. And that's a very cute way of being able to cross the water. I really like that. And in Sword and Shield, you actually get an upgrade to your bike that allows you to cycle across water, which is really freaking cool in concept. I really like that. And of course in Scarlet and Violet, your lizard bike companion, Koraidon and Miraidon, gain the ability to surf after you fight a giant bird. So that's interesting. But yeah, for the most part, you're going to be relying on Pokemon to cross water in this series, especially with the HM Surf. Well, like I said before, some of the later games make it so that you have alternative means of being able to cross the water. So you don't need to teach a Pokemon Surf to be able to navigate these areas. Which I do find very nice with the later games in the series, how they completely do away with HMs for the most part. Like, it was definitely Sun and Moon that started just removing HMs as required progress, which I definitely appreciate. Later games definitely have a pretty nice flow to them, where you're not hampered by, oh, I need to bring this Pokemon onto my team, and I need to teach it this one specific move that I'm only going to use in very situational means if we're going to progress the story. Yeah, you don't have to worry about that. Just hop on a bull and just have it steamroll some rocks, or jump on a shark and just have it surf across the water. That's all you need to do. It's very cool seeing how these games evolve over time, and a lot of the more archaic elements like HMs eventually they're taken out of the formula. I know some people kind of harp on the newer games for a lot of ways, but they really streamline the process of playing through the adventure and immersing yourself in this world. And for that, I am forever grateful for this series' development. Alright, we haven't gotten any wild encounters on this route yet, which is shocking. I definitely know I haven't popped a repel recently. Oh, here we go. So our encounter here, surprise, surprise, is Tentacool. Ugh, it's level 8. That's gonna make training you a bit interesting. It's okay. We can definitely get you raised up with time. But yeah, Tentacool, as I said before, this is a good Pokemon. In fact, I'd even call it amazing. Definitely has some good bulk, pretty fast and strong. Water and Poison is a very unique typing in this region. So yeah, definitely go for it if you have if you want to. By this point, you probably already have a good, reliable water type, but you know, it's still pretty good. Alright, what are we gonna do with you? I don't really have any option of being able to weaken this thing by lowering its health, so just got to rely on our status ailment to lower its catch rate. I mean, increase its catch rate. But yeah, we got ourselves a Tentacool now. Tentacool, the jellyfish Pokemon. Its eyes are as transparent as crystals. From them, it shoots mysterious beams of light. Definitely a very interesting catch there. Alright, for you, I got a specific name I want to do. We'll call you Man-O... War. Which is actually named after a species of jellyfish. Quite the cool one, too. Yep, with that, we got our Route 19 catch. And kind of spoilers, but the next route has the exact same encounter table as this route, and we're likely not going to be able to catch anything new here, so, you know, we just have to deal with that. Yeah, I do like the Kanto region, but there's only 150 options we have for Pokemon here in the base game. Not even 150, actually, but, you know, we only have a couple options, and that can make things very samey in a lot of routes. It's not like the later games where they always manage to fit at least one new Pokemon per area. The water's shallow here. There are many people swimming. It's not to devalue the older games. Like, these are still good games. They're just not as advanced as the newer ones, and just with how the series has evolved, you can obviously see how some of these just overall have a better... just with the advancements they do over time, just makes the overall experience progressing through the games a lot more interesting. Ooh, we got Cloyster here. I forget if we fought one of these guys yet, but Cloyster, definitely pretty cool. The evolution is Shelder. It is a physical tank, which is pretty interesting for a water type. But it is not very good at taking special moves, so that's obviously what you're going to do with those guys. It's also interesting in that it becomes water-ice when it evolves, and that's definitely a pretty elusive type. Well, not too elusive, considering how many water-ice types there are in this generation, but yeah, it is pretty rare. While we're also exploring this area, there's definitely a lot of things I wanted to talk about recently. So, last couple of days have been pretty nice. So this is the third of my 3-day work break, which is definitely pretty nice. I've enjoyed having some time off from work. Then again, I would like to, you know, get back to work after this break. Because, you know, just having a time to rest between work, it's always nice, but then you start to miss the hustle and bustle of having that tight schedule you need to follow, you know? So yeah, definitely feel good to be back to work after this break. It was still a nice break, though. Definitely nice to get my some good progress in our streams. We managed to have... managed to take some time to upload a few new videos on this channel. So I've begun uploading the Twitch VODs for my Metroid Zero Mission playthrough that I did so many years ago back on Twitch. So definitely check that out if you're a fan of Metroid. Definitely quite like those. But yeah, that is something I've been doing lately. In terms of what else we've done, yesterday, obviously I didn't stream. I spent that day just taking a break for myself. So, got no stream schedule to worry about, just wanted to do what I want. And it was definitely a pretty nice day. Went over to a breakfast restaurant I like to frequent, got myself a omelet, and that was as yummy as they always tend to be there. And then, after getting that done, so I decided to pick up a movie that I didn't get to watch last year, but one that I heard a lot of hype about. And after a recent video posted by Shafrillis, I definitely knew that I needed to check it out. So I picked up a copy of Wicked, and I spent yesterday watching that. It definitely took a lot of time. It was a over 2-hour movie. So definitely very lengthy, but my god, it was worth it. I just absolutely loved that movie. It was just such a fun musical with just a lot of good numbers. Like the set design and the costumes, like really bright and vibrant, definitely very striking in terms of its overall look. Strong trainers and water Pokemon are common sights these parts. They say that Misty of the Cerulean Gym trains here. Well, she would definitely like the water accommodation here. But yeah, just a phenomenal musical. Really dug the songs, the choreography, and of course the leads of the movie just really made it really stand out. Just such a good cast that they did for this story, which is essentially a backstory that they're giving to the characters of Glinda and Elphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West, from The Wizard of Oz. And as a interpretation of what these characters might have been like before the events of that movie, yeah, it's just a very interesting story they do with these characters. And obviously the very personal journey that Elphaba goes through and how she's trying to use her powers in a good way. It was just such a wonderful movie. Just such a great story. With some really likable characters. Also, Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard of Oz himself. My god, such phenomenal casting there. Like, he just really plays up the sliminess of the wizard. How he's essentially this old-timey magician and con artist who managed to convince an entire fantasy setting that he is this all-powerful magical wizard. But of course, all of his miracles are just illusions and a charade he puts on in order to further his own personal schemes. And just seeing the conflict with Elphaba and the wizard at the end of the movie, my god, that was so good. Yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about this movie. It was incredible. But anyway, we are here in a new area, and this gives us a new Pokemon that we can catch. Psyduck. So this guy is... well, it's certainly something. It's another water-type Pokemon. This one is certainly unique in that it gains the ability to learn psychic attacks naturally, which is definitely nice for filling up its moveset. But yeah, this guy really isn't too special compared to some other Pokemon. Like, Psyduck in this game is exclusive to FireRed. I highly think that the Leaf Green counterpart Slowpoke is infinitely better. For one, Slowpoke is Water Psychic, so it actually gets a type bonus to its Psychic attacks. And also, its evolution is just way better than Psyduck's evolution, personally. And it also gets 2 evolutions instead of just 1 for Psyduck. So yeah, I definitely feel the Leaf Green has it better when it comes to what you can find here in Seafoam Island. But you know, Psyduck is still decent. It is constantly racked by a headache. When the headache turns intense, it begins using mysterious powers. Alright, so we got a little duck guy. What are we gonna call you? I've certainly used a lot of Psyducks back in the day, but in terms of names for this guy, not a whole lot are coming to me. Alright, it's gonna be a pretty simple nickname, but I think it fits. I'm gonna call you Quackers. Get it? Because it sounds like crackers. Alright, so that is our Seafoam Island catch. Very nice. We're definitely making some good progress here. Now, I would like to explore a bit more Seafoam Island, because there's some good items we can get here, but I pretty much just came in here so we can get our catch. We'll look around a bit more and see what else we can find, but yeah, we're not going to venture too far into this place, at least for the time being. Because for anyone who knows what this game has in store for you, you obviously know what we can find at the bottom of this place. Yep, we'll look around the first floor, see what we can pick up, and then we'll leave. But yeah, Seafoam Island. This area is definitely interesting lore-wise. It's one of the few areas where you can naturally find some ice Pokemon. It's also a pretty interesting for some of the developments that happen here in between games. But we're not really going to talk too much about that right now. It is pretty interesting with some things that we'll eventually get to see. Because it does relate to the next gym leader that we'll be facing. Yeah, this is just a pretty cool area. I like this place aesthetically, how we have the light blue stones here. Definitely gives it a very cool feel compared to some of the other areas we've been to. But yeah, we are pretty much done with exploring this area for this session. We'll definitely want to stop by here later on when we're a bit stronger for one particular reason. Please get to the exit already. There we go, we're finally out. So, in order to progress farther on Route 20 from here, you do need to explore Seafoam Island, and eventually you need to work on solving a puzzle deep in there in order to fully be able to pop out the other end and be able to move onward to the western section of this route. However, we're not going to go over there right now. We're going to stop over in Pallet Town, our old stomping grounds. Let's go talk to our mother. It's been a while. Hayden, you should take a quick rest. Thank you, Mom. Oh, good. You and your Pokemon are looking great. Take care now. It's always nice to stop in on your mother every now and then. So while we're here, what are we able to do? So we can talk to Daisy again. Just like people, Pokemon are living things. When they get tired, please give them a rest. There's another thing we can do with Daisy, but I don't know if we can do it until after we beat the main story. And we can also visit the professor. Good to see you. How's your Pokedex coming along? Here, let me take a look. Amount of progress you made on your Pokedex is 124 Pokemon seen and 69 Pokemon owned. Nice. Oh, this is turning into quite the respectable Pokedex. And your national Pokedex is 124 Pokemon seen, 69 Pokemon owned. So yep, Professor Oak is able to evaluate your Pokedex and can give you recommendations on how to advance forward with the Pokedex if you haven't acquired enough progress. Yeah, his advice can be pretty helpful from time to time, but it's not really going to be necessary to us on our journey because we obviously don't need his advice here. Okay, thinking of what we're going to want to do for this route. So we're going to switch in to Raditz here, as over on Route 21, we have the water and we have grass here. And in the grass, we can encounter this wacky guy, Tangela. This is the only pure grass-type Pokemon in the entirety of the Kanto region. And likely the only pure grass type you're ever going to encounter in this game. It is certainly something compared to the other grass types like Vileplume and Victory Bell. Yeah, this one isn't really too special because its stats are lower than those guys, but it's still pretty nice. It's got some good bulk to it, some good power as well. And like all grass types, it has the ability to be able to set up a lot of status ailments on the opponents. Definitely more of a support Pokemon than an actually good battler, but you know, it could still be helpful to you. So we want to be really careful with this guy. We only have so many Pokeballs to catch you with. If your health depleting here, yeah, this will be a bit tricky. Maybe. Or not, we actually managed to catch you. Yeah, Tangela, it's kind of hard to recommend in these older games specifically. But in the next generation of games, Gen 4, they actually gave an evolution to this Pokemon, and it's actually a quite good one. In fact, I actually used a Tangela on my team when I was playing through Platinum over on Twitch. That's definitely a very fun time getting to use that Pokemon, since I don't see too many people talk about it. Alright, so this Tangela, as she has a female, doesn't go with the gender of the last Tangela that I had. Okay, because you're a grass type, I had an interesting choice for a name here. We'll call you Fern Gully. Anyone who is aware of that particular movie, it's got some entertaining bits to it. But with that, we have managed to catch ourselves a Tangela, knocking out another Pokemon on our encounter table. Also, I forget if this is the case, but I'm pretty sure this is the only route in the game where you can actually encounter Tangela. I think there might be routes later on where they're available, but this is the one that I know for sure you can encounter them. They're the only Pokemon you can find in the grass, too, so that's obviously what you can do with that. We got a fisherman, he's got a bunch of Magikarp. I can obviously tell because in at least one game of this series, there's always going to be at least one fisherman who has an entire team of Magikarp. Maybe he will have a Gyarados, but it is highly unlikely. So yeah, we got ourselves another battle that's just going to be hitting the A button to win, so what else can we talk about? So I completely forgot to mention this in our previous sessions that we did, but a while ago, and by a while I mean like last week exactly, I actually managed to finish up the main story in Xenoblade Chronicles X. It's been a long time coming since I hadn't played that game for over 10 years, but with the release of the Definitive Edition on the Switch, it seemed as good a time as any to finally revisit the game and finally conclude this story that I hadn't gotten to fully experience in all these years. And yeah, definitely a fun time. It's a pretty interesting conclusion. I feel like the choices that they made for the final boss in this game, it was an interesting direction. Certainly wasn't what I would have gone with as the conclusion to this story, but it was an interesting final battle. Just conceptually it was cool, not necessarily what I would have done with the game. But yeah, it was certainly an interesting finale. And yeah, pretty interesting to get started on some of the post-game content with that game. So I've actually set aside a Xenoblade X for a while. I'll definitely try to jump back into it sometime in the future so I can get to experience the new post-game stories that are unique to Definitive Edition, because they'll definitely help to flesh out the ending of this game. Because, oh boy, there are quite a few reveals in the end game of Xenoblade X that are definitely worth talking about, but not really here, since this isn't a Xenoblade-focused stream series. But sometime in the future, when I have the proper hardware set up, definitely I would love to stream those games, because, my god, I am just in such Xenoblade brain rot over the last couple of years. I love those games tremendously. And in terms of progress within that series, besides the Definitive Edition content that I need to do with Xenoblade X, the next story stuff that I needed to do in the Xenoblade series is going to be Torna the Golden Country, which is the DLC storyline added to Xenoblade 2. So that'll definitely be very interesting to go over, especially from what I've seen of Chugga Convoy's Let's Play of Torna. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a game that is right up my alley. Should be a lot of fun. But yeah, definitely pretty interesting that finally managed to complete this game that took me so long to finally get through. It was a good time overall. I definitely really liked the game. I wouldn't say that it's my favorite in the Xenoblade series. In fact, out of the core 4 games, it would probably be at the bottom. But, you know, I obviously have a lot of sentimental value with Xenoblade 1. Even if a lot of mechanics in it are better refined in 2 and 3. So I'd probably say that Xenoblade 1 is my personal favorite, though I do feel that 2 and especially 3 are way better as games. But you know, that's just my opinion. Everyone is entitled to feel however they want with these games. Ooh, we got ourselves poisoned. Yeah, despite this thing not being a poison type, Seadra gets the poison point ability. You know, because it's covered in spines. Which I think is meant to be a reference to lionfish, as those creatures have a lot of poisonous spines on them. And Seadra has a lot of elements to it that are pretty similar to lionfish, just with the big, spiky fins that it has. Yeah, it's kind of interesting we don't actually have a lionfish Pokemon at this point in the series. Definitely would be pretty cool when it comes to Pokemon concepts. Definitely look pretty interesting, like give it a full mane of spines that gives it a very lion-like look. That'd be really cool. I mean, we have no shortage of fish Pokemon at this point in the series. But yeah, there's still a lot of concepts that they could use. But But yeah, in terms of some other stuff that I've been doing lately. So, I've been spending this week actually revisiting Pokemon Shield, because there's definitely some stuff that I've been meaning to do in that game for some time. Like, I want to get started on doing some more of the Galarian Star tournament matches, as that was a very cool mechanic that they added in the DLC for that game, where you enter this tournament where you get to participate in battles alongside a lot of important characters you've met over the course of the story of Sword and Shield, as well as the DLC storylines. It's just very cool being able to battle against all of these characters, because, man, I really do love the characters in Sword and Shield. They definitely have some very cool designs and quirks to them. I know a lot of people aren't too fond of those games, but I like them. I definitely feel like they don't warrant as much of the vitriol that people have given them over the last couple of years. I mean, I know it's super bummed that we can't have every Pokemon in a game now, but like, there's 1,000 of these fuckers, and it takes a long time in order to program all of the different animations that they needed to do, so, you know, cut them a bit of slack. Hey, don't scare away the fish! But yeah, I've been playing a bit of Shield in order to do some things I wanted. I've been doing a lot of Dynamax adventures. Still have not managed to find a new shiny by doing Dynamax adventures, sadly. Which is pretty fun, because yesterday I was watching somebody do some streams of where they were doing the Dynamax adventures with people, and they managed to find 2 shinies in the same adventure. Which is definitely pretty interesting, because mechanically you can only bring one of those catches you make into your Pokemon selection. So, sadly, they weren't able to obtain one of those shinies, but it was pretty fun getting to see that reaction. So I've definitely seen a lot of people have some interesting finds when doing the Dynamax adventures. So I definitely enjoy it as a mechanic. I just haven't had the best luck with it. Like, since the release of the Crown Tundra DLC, I have only obtained 1 shiny from Dynamax Adventures, and that was a Noctowl. So yeah, I am definitely overdue for getting another shiny from that mechanic. But I was also doing a bit of normal shiny hunting in that game, as for the longest time I really wanted to try and hunt for a shiny Oddish in that game. Since back when I streamed Emerald on my Twitch account, one of the things that happened in that game is that while I was grinding in order to set up for eventually acquiring the ability to encounter the Pokemon Latios, I believe was the one we were going for. It was either Latios or Latios. But I was trying to set up and be able to encounter that thing in the wild, just so that we could easily be able to track it and get ourselves prepared for when we'd be able to catch it on stream. And while I was hunting for that thing, I encountered a shiny Oddish. And I was really frustrated by that because I wasn't streaming when I encountered the thing. So obviously that really annoyed me. But thankfully, I actually did manage to finally encounter a shiny Oddish in Shield. So now I have a legit shiny Oddish. And I'm not sure which of its evolutions I'm going to evolve. Considering that you can acquire its evolutions in Dynamax Adventures, I think I'm going to wait a while before I decide on what I'm going to evolve it into, but, you know, it's pretty nice that I finally managed to hunt this thing. So yeah, that was definitely a very good find. Especially because I personally have pretty fond affinity for Oddish. Definitely up there are some of my favorite Gen 1 Pokemon. It's just such a cutie, and I like that it gains 2 evolutions over the course of the series. It's definitely a pretty nice way of making this simple grass-type Pokemon from the early days stand out a bit more. Yeah, besides that, I also managed to finally level up the main Pokemon I was using during the main story of Pokemon Shield. My very first team that I brought to the champion. I managed to finally level them up to level 100. So now they can enjoy the illustrious position of being some of the strongest Pokemon I have raised. And yeah, I definitely found a lot of favorites among the Sword and Shield roster. It definitely has a lot of very cool Pokemon that I really enjoy, like Grimmsnarl, Dreadnought, Poltegeist, and of course the starters. It has a very interesting pool of starters. Like, the one I have the most affinity for is, I just really love Cinderace, which the evolution is Scorbunny. But I also have a lot of love for Grookey's final form, Rillaboom. Just because it's a drummer gorilla. And the way it uses, like, a tree trunk as its drum, that's just a pretty fun idea. Really like that Pokemon. Yeah, definitely a lot of interesting developments with that game of late. I like getting to revisit the older games, because there's always something new you can find. And yeah, just a fun time going back to that game. Especially after playing through a lot of Scarlet and Violet in recent years. I definitely feel that the Sword and Shield art style holds up pretty nicely, all things considered. Like, it's obviously not the prettiest Nintendo Switch game, but, you know, for what it is, it still looks pretty nice. I definitely feel people harp a bit too much on the visuals of Pokemon games. Like, ultimately, the most impressive part of the game should be the gameplay, and the roster of Pokemon you're able to acquire. But yeah, people can also have their strong opinions about the visuals of the series. And like, we were just fine playing through the games when they were on the Game Boy, and where every Pokemon looked incredibly off-model. So I think you can stand to play a game where the texture on a tree is a little under what you would expect from this console generation. But anyway, now that that run is done, we have finally arrived on Cinnabar Island. The next step on our journey here. The door's locked. Aw, man. So we can't go and fight the gym leader, the hot-headed quizmaster. That's disappointing. Oh well, we'll have to come back later. Cinnabar Gym's Blaine is quite the odd fellow. He's lived on the island since way before the lab was built. Well, definitely nice to have your roots here. Alright, in terms of what we want to do here, I want to register the Super Rod for what we are going to find here. Yeah, I think Raditz is okay to have here. Because we are going fishing here today. So yep, here on Cinnabar Island, we are going to want to fish in the water to see what we can get. Not you, Gyarados. Also, the thing's level 16. That is lower than the required level to evolve Magikarp at. Get out of here, you mutant freak. Yeah, you are not what we are after here, because we already have a Gyarados. Still debating whether I want to train up our Gyarados a bit more, because it is a really good Pokemon, but at the same time it's a little too good, you know what I'm saying? Speaking of which, I have actually been considering what we're eventually going to get from the game corner, since we haven't acquired one of the 5 options at the game corner yet. And out of the selection we have there are 2 that definitely stand out to me. One being Dratini and the other being Cypher. And I've definitely been leaning towards getting the Cypher, because with the way that our game is set up, and the way trade evolutions have, you know, been totally axed, we could get Cypher with its evolution, which would definitely be really cool, since its evolution is Bug Steel. And that type combination only has 1 weakness, which would make this thing an incredible boon for us in our journey. But at the same time, I don't know if I want to go with that. Just I feel that would be a little too cheap, you know? Since it's not a Pokemon you're likely to acquire over the main story of FireRed Elite 3. But you know, it's still a good Pokemon. It would be really nice for our team. But yeah, it's a little awkward to think about. I mean, I already have Kingdra and Politoed, so at this point we could just... yeah, we could just grab it. Who knows? But anyway, totally talked over this, but we managed to acquire Shelter! It's encased in a shell that's harder than diamond. Inside, however, it is surprisingly tender. To be expected of a Pokemon based on a clam. Or, I guess a scallop, given this thing's appearance. So yeah, Shelter here. I have definitely gained a lot of appreciation for this Pokemon in recent years. But that's mainly because of one of the new abilities it gets, called Skill Link, which pairs really nicely with some of the attacks this Pokemon gets in the later games. So we don't have access to that ability in this game, but, you know, Shelter's still good. Has some nice options to it. It's gonna be pretty basic considering what this Pokemon is, but we will call you Sheldon. Get it? Because it has a shell. But yeah, that is a very nice find for us. Could be some good backup should anything happen to Aether. It's also nice because it evolves into Water Ice, and that's always a good type to have. Though, in terms of defenses, yeah, it's not really the best defensive type, it's more of an offensive type. But, you know, it's still good. Ooh, and it's holding a Pearl. Yeah, sometimes wild Pokemon can hold items that you're able to sell for money. Like in the case of Shelter here, because we found it with a Pearl. Yeah, you can also encounter Shelters and then use the move Thief to be able to steal the pearls from them without having to catch them. So that's some good utility with the move Thief if you want to get some extra money. So that is very nice. So we have a break here. So we're going to look over our recent catches and just see what these guys are like. So Manowar, you have Liquid Ooze. Of your potential abilities, that's kind of not the best. And you have a Relaxed Nature. I think that's less defense in exchange for more special defense. It's not really the best for you. The Quackers, you have a Modest Nature, so that's actually an improvement to your Water and Psychic attacks. And you have Cloud 9, which negates the effects of weather. Not really the best, but, you know, still pretty decent. Then Fern Gully here. Ooh, you have a Mild Nature. That improves special attack. So you could be pretty good that way. But yeah, this Pokemon's also pretty slow. But it does well in the sun with the Chlorophyll ability to improve its speed. Yeah, definitely an interesting choice, but you do have some good potential, but I'm not sure if I'm going to use it in this run. And then we have Sheldon. He's quirky, so that's a neutral nature. We got Shell Armor, which is good for evading crits. Yeah, you look pretty good. Alright, let's go take that item, as we would really like to have that pearl. And then, before we go any farther, there's a certain area that we have access to at this point, and we're going to box Khalifa and Aether for the time being, for a reason that will become very apparent very soon. So I want to open up our party so that we now have 2 spaces. And you want to make sure that you picked up both the Helix Fossil and the Old Amber. I mean, the Helix Fossil you're required to go for. Either that or the Dome Fossil, and the Old Amber is an optional item you can pick up at Pewter City. But yeah, highly recommend picking up those items at this point. I came to visit the Cinnabar Gym, but the door's locked tight. There should be a key for it somewhere. Could it be that in that burned-out mansion? The gym leader's friend used to live there, they say. Oh, really? Do you have lots of friends? Linking up with the usual friends is fun, of course. How about visiting the Union Room ever so often? Who knows, you may end up making new friends. I think it'd be worth your time to check the Union Room. That's going into multiplayer content, which we're obviously not doing. Pokemon can still learn techniques after canceling evolution. Evolution can wait until new moves have been learned. That is indeed a good mechanic to remember, since lower stage Pokemon will learn moves faster than their evolved counterparts. In a lot of instances. It's not always the case with most Pokemon, but yeah, definitely pretty good to keep them in their base form, just so you can see what they're able to get. I mean, you can definitely look up the different move options that they have available online, so it gives you a good idea on where to go for in terms of attacks. And at the mart here, we're now able to buy Ultra Balls. So these are going to be really good, and we'll definitely want to focus on buying these over the other Pokeball types, since Ultra Balls have a ×2 bonus to catching Pokemon compared to the Great Ball. So that'll definitely be good. And we can also buy Hyper Potions here, for replenishing up to 200 HP. We'll buy a few of these. Probably not going to rely on these for the most part, since not all of our Pokemon have that high an HP total. But, you know, they're still good items. It's actually pretty interesting they changed the amount of HP that these these items recover in the later games. So, Hyper Potions in the modern games now restore 120 HP, which I feel is a lot more reasonable than 200. I mean, at this point, just look at Coilette. She only has 110 HP at this stage of the game. Scientists conduct experiments in the burned-out building. You know, the one they call the Pokemon Mansion? Pokemon Lab. Oh, so we got ourselves a research lab here. We study Pokemon extensively every day. People often bring us rare Pokemon for examination. A photo of the lab's founder, Dr. Fuji. We previously met a man named Mr. Fuji over in Lavender Town. It's quite interesting. But yeah, the Pokemon Lab here is a science research center focused on Pokemon. There's definitely quite a few things we can do here. So we're able to trade a Raichu for an Electro here. Not really worth it, honestly. I found this most remarkable fossil inside Mount Moon. I think it's of a rare prehistoric Pokemon. Hi, do you have Venonat? Want to trade it for my Tangela? That's another trade that's not really worth it, since you have a 100% chance of encountering Tangela on Route 21. If we go in here, I'll teach you a nifty move. Teach you to Pokemon, watch the fun unfold. It's a move called Metronome. This attack. Alright, this is an interesting one. It's a move only certain Pokemon can learn, but it is a wild card of a move. Metronome is able to take an attack from the random pool of total Pokemon attacks and then use that move in battle. It is the ultimate move if you want to go completely bonkers in a Pokemon playthrough. You're able to acquire this move naturally from Clefairy if you're able to catch that. But yeah, this move is wild. It's able to pull an attack from the entire moveset of Pokemon. And just use that in battle. It is so crazy what you're able to do with this attack. Like, sometimes it doesn't really work out well. Sometimes it'll just pull a really powerful attack. And sometimes it'll just make your Pokemon kill itself with Explosion. They're free legendary bird Pokemon. They're Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres. Their whereabouts are unknown. We plan to explore the cavern close to Cerulean. From Pokemon Research Team. So got some hints about the legendary Pokemon we can find in this region. But yeah, Metronome. It's such a wild attack. I definitely think it's fun to have a Pokemon use it in your casual playthroughs. But if you're doing a challenge run, especially the ones where Pokemon obviously... If your Pokemon have a chance of dying from your challenge runs, then I don't really recommend it too much, just on the off chance that they end up pulling an attack that kills them. Now, if we talk to this guy, Eevee can evolve into one of 3 kinds of Pokemon. Yes, we're already well acquainted with one of them. And over here, I'm looking for the Pokemon Ponyta. Want to trade one for my Seal? Now that one would be pretty good, since Seal are more elusive, but Ponyta is also a bit elusive, only in a certain location that we don't have access to yet. Hiya! I'm Important Doctor! Yes, very much so indeed. Here I study rare Pokemon fossils. All the time I study. Have you a fossil for me? So this is where we're able to take our fossils in order to revive them into Pokemon. Oh, that's Helix Fossil it is! It's a fossil of Omanite, Pokemon that's already extinct. My resurrection machine will make that Pokemon live again! So, you hurry and give me that. I take a little time, you go for a walk a little while. So now that we've given him the fossil, we just walk out the room and come back. You late! Where were you? Your fossil's back to life! It was Omanite, like I think! And with that, we receive the Pokemon Omanite. I mean, was there anything else I was gonna call this thing? So, Omanite here is one of the elusive fossil Pokemon that can only be acquired if you chose the Helix Fossil in Mount Moon. If you pick the Dome Fossil, you would get Kabuto here. Oh, this thing is modest! Oh, that improves your special attack. Oh, that is good. That could be good for considering for backup in the future. Yeah, this thing could be pretty good for you. It's a rock-water type, definitely pretty powerful while also having some good defensive options. And it has shell armor, which is very nice for preventing crits. Now, one of my previous runs, I actually did a Nuzlocke run in Let's Go Pikachu, and I actually ended up bringing Omanite onto my team for that, and it managed to survive the entire run, so that was very cool. But what's not too cool is the level this thing is at. So if you're playing the original Gen 1 games, you would get the fossils at level 30, which isn't too far off from when they evolve at, but here in Generation 3, you get them at level 5. This makes it such a pain to train these things up to get them strong for your team. And yeah, that's a bit annoying. But anyway, we got ourselves the old Amber. It's a fossil of another Pokemon we can acquire, so we're gonna give that to you. So this whole area here and the concept of reviving life forms from fossils, It's obviously inspired by the Jurassic Park movies. And it's very cool fitting in this idea for the Pokemon series. I just felt like it's a very cool idea, being able to revive long-extinct life forms that have been dead for millions of years, and getting them added to your team. But with that said, in order to accompany Lord Helix, we now have King Amber, the Aerodactyl. So this guy here is a rock flying type, a pretty elusive typing even in today's standards. This guy is pretty cool. It's more of a fast and offensive Pokemon, and definitely really good. However, much like Omanyte and Kabuto, it starts at level 5. So yeah, training this thing up, it's going to be a pain to do. But we will definitely work on that in the future, because these Pokemon are good options for us. It'd certainly be good additions to our team. For the time being, we will set them aside. Alright, considering this next area we're going to, what do I want from my party? Raditz, you're not going to be too good in this area, so we'll want to swap you out. This next area is focused on fire and poison. So, yeah, we want to be cautious with the guys we use. I think we can give Coilette a break. She's had some good action here. And these two can also take a break. Alright, so that is looking pretty good with our Pokemon selection here. We already almost filled out our reserves box, so we're definitely going to want to open up another box for our future encounters. The things we are still able to do. Yeah, we got ourselves a pretty tough fight coming up, so it'd be a good idea for us to get prepared for this. With our current levels, we should be able to do the next required dungeon. Should have a good time going through this. Alright, so now that we have revived our fossils, it is time to move on. Definitely a very cool area. Obviously, I like the Jurassic Park vibes that you get from this research laboratory. Alright, so this next area is going to have a lot for us to see, and obviously encounter in terms of Pokemon. But this can also be a pretty big area with a lot of encounters. I'm thinking we could pick up a few repels at the mart, just so that we're not having to deal with too many things here. Yeah, we'll buy 3 of these, and we should be good to go. Alright, so to close off this time that we explore the mansion that we have heard so much about here. Will definitely be a fun thing for us to do. Wait, looks like we are actually having a bit of a bad connection right now. We're just gonna give it a few seconds to make sure things are stable here. Okay, looks like things are good. We had a bit of frame drops, but I think we should be good to go forward. Yeah, I just don't want things to be too risky here. I want to make sure we end this stream on a good note, and if things go down, I really wouldn't like that to happen. We had some pretty stable streams over the last month. It's certainly been more stable than things have been. Wow. Yeah, at the moment I think things are going to be good. Just had a little bit of frame drops, but seems like things are stable right now, so we should be good. Okay, I think it's high time that we press on. So let us do this. The Pokemon Mansion. This area is pretty fascinating. This area has a lot of lore implications, as this place was the site of a very special event in the history of this series. Also got a coughing here. It's our encounter for this area, and... I mean, you're pretty defensive. You could live a Mega Punch. Nope, we got a critical hit. Alright, so I think that's our first failed encounter, because we knocked out that coughing that would have been our encounter here. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and pop a Max Repel. Oh man, it finally happened. I mean, I probably wasn't going to use coughing anyway, because I know it's a coughing, but still, it's definitely a bit of a misstep there. Ah, you startled me! I thought you were a ghost! So yeah, Pokemon Mansion here. We are going to get a lot of lore drops in this place, because it is very integral to the story of a very specific Pokemon that we will be encountering. Well, actually, we're probably not going to encounter, because I really don't have a plan to stream the post-game of FireRed here. I mean, I've previously done the post-game for Leaf Green, which I will upload here someday. So, yeah, I don't feel like it's going to be very necessary for us to do that. But still going to be an interesting area for showing off a bit of the lore with a very important Pokemon that is obviously very well known to the series. I don't know why I'm being so coy about mentioning it right now. But yeah, it's going to be pretty fun exploring this area and getting to see all those lore drops again. So in terms of this area, there's quite a few different encounters we can get in this area. So depending on your version, you're able to acquire Growlithe if you're playing FireRed, and you can get Vulpix if you're playing Leaf Green, and the same is also true if you're playing the original Gen 1 games. And I believe Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee as well. And depending on the versions you play, at least in this generation, you have an increased chance of being able to encounter Coughing if you're playing FireRed, and an increased chance of encountering Grimer in Leaf Green. So yeah, this area is obviously not very well kept, and we have a lot of instances of some toxic Pokemon inhabiting this area. This area has definitely seen a lot of wear. Now we have these statues over here of a very certain Pokemon, and by flipping those switches, they open these doors in this area that grant us access to some new pathways. So yeah, what you're going to be doing in this area is just using the statues in order to open the different doors, in order to access different sections of this area. We'll get that protein to Wilma, because she can always use more attack. And so we flip that switch. I think we are good to go up here. There's a lot of different pathways around here, and I want to be certain that we explore every nook and cranny we can, because there's a lot of good items that can be found here, especially in the later section of this area. So got ourselves some burglars here. A quite unique trainer class that we don't really get to encounter much in this game. But yep, they're just these robbers that are exploring the mansion, trying to find anything of value here. which this place is heavily implied to have been a research center that was here long before the Pokemon lab was built. So, yeah, there definitely would be important things that you could find here. Oh no, my bag of loot! I got a good amount of money by beating this guy. The switches here open and close, alternating sets of doors. Good to hear, buddy. So also forget if using the item finder would be good in this area. There's just a lot of different hidden pathways around here, so acquiring as much as you can would be really good. Got a zinc, so that's special defense, so we'll give that to Valium. You can always use more special bulk. Alright, now over this way. Diary, July 10th. We christened the newly discovered Pokemon Mew. Okay, I obviously missed a book on one of the lower levels, I believe. But yeah, there are these research journals that you can find all over the place here. And they paint a picture of what exactly happened to the people that were researching this area and the specific Pokemon that they were doing their research on. So got that information that they discovered a new Pokemon, they named it Mew. Alright, Diary, July 5th. Yuana, South America. A new Pokemon was discovered deep in the jungle. Another example of them referencing a real-world location here in the series. Though obviously in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, that dialogue has been altered so that it no longer mentions South America. So it just says that they found a new Pokemon in a jungle. Doesn't specify where that they actually encountered it. But yeah, some very interesting lore we're getting about this new Pokemon that we haven't really encountered over the course of this game, but definitely pretty interesting for the lore of the series. I think we want to hit... Actually, I think we want to take this door here. This gives us a closed-off area that we're not able to access from the other floors. Diary, February 6th. Mew gave birth. We named the newborn Mewtwo. Very creative name there. This place is, like, huge. You're right about that, good sir. This place is indeed huge. Also, burglar! So definitely gotta take this guy out before he, I don't know, steals stethoscopes and Bunsen burners. But yep, the researchers here, they discovered a new species of Pokemon far off in the jungles of South America, and this Pokemon gave birth to a life form that was christened Mewtwo. Now, obviously, if you're familiar with the lore of this series, that doesn't really fit in too much with the lore that they have established with that particular Pokemon, where Mewtwo is specifically a Pokemon cloned from the DNA of Mew. So that's an element of the story here that has been sort of changed in between the different versions of the games. Also the fact of, well, back in the Generation 1 games, referencing Pokemon giving live birth is pretty interesting, considering that this was back before they introduced Pokemon laying eggs, which is how Pokemon in the modern games go about reproducing. But yeah, back in this early day, there's only a few references to Pokemon actually giving live birth. Alright, we are all out of repels, so we're gonna be stuck dealing with encounters from here on out. Not like the things around here are that tough, and it will be good to get a couple more levels, It'll definitely save me the trouble of training up our team before the next gym, because, yeah, we definitely want to make sure we are prepared for this one. But I am pretty confident in our team. We should have a good chance against the next gym. But yeah, talk about some other stuff that's been going on. So, pretty recently I was watching a streamer that I follow, Moxie2D. He was playing a bit more of the Genshin Impact, which has been a game that I have been really just obsessed with over the last couple of years. I've actually gone back into playing it after a few years of not touching the game for a few years, and been having a pretty good time with it, and leveling up my characters for the new challenges now that we are going to face. And yeah, now that I've done with playing Xenoblade Chronicles X and having that be the main focus of my gaming adventures for a while, decided that I wanted to jump back into Genshin, and yeah, I've definitely been having a fun time of that. Like, I needed to download a update for the game, since I hadn't played it for over a month, but it didn't take too long for me to download all the stuff I needed. And yeah, jumping back into the game, it's still as good as I remember. My mentor once lived here. Was his name Mr. Fuji? Brayden here. It's very similar to the name of a certain Pokemon content creator that I follow. But yeah, definitely excited to play some more of Genshin. Like, I've already done like a couple of the daily/weekly things that I needed to do since starting up the game again earlier today. Actually, right before we started this stream session. So that was definitely very nice to get accustomed to the game again. And yeah, very soon I'm very excited to start the Inazuma chapter of the game. Because a few months ago, I actually finished up the Liwa storyline, and a lot of the story elements that I needed to do to tie into eventually gaining access to Inazuma. It's also interesting because we also have the ability to just explore a bunch of the other later areas that we have free access to at this point. And it'll definitely be interesting to explore a bit more of this world. So I do really love the exploration of this game, and acquiring all these new trinkets and other things to help strengthen our characters. Also, something I really want to do this week. There is a specific event that we can do at the moment that is going to go away in a few days, but I really want to do it because I have the ability to pull a character that I have wanted ever since I started playing this game, which is Venti, who is a character that obviously has a lot of lore importance to the game, but also, I really want Venti on my team. So yeah, definitely gonna try and grind enough items to be able to try and wish this guy. I did attempt to wish him earlier, and I ended up pulling a character that I hadn't gotten yet. So that's pretty interesting. I'll definitely try to level her up while I am taking care of other things in this game. But yeah, my main focus right now is going to see if we are able to acquire Venti, because I really want to get him, because we only have a limited time to pull him in this period. And thinking about some of the other stuff we're going to do in the game. So I don't know how frequently I'm going to be playing this game. I mean, we could make Genshin the game that I'm going to be playing all throughout May, since next month we have the release of the Nintendo Switch 2. And I've already pre-ordered my Switch 2 along with a copy of Mario Kart World, which I'm obviously really excited to dig my teeth into, because that game looks so good. yeah, it'll definitely be very fun when we eventually get this new console. It definitely looks like it's going to be more powerful and a lot more efficient than the previous Nintendo Switch. And I already really like the Nintendo Switch. It's easily among my favorite consoles that Nintendo has ever released. Just with the sheer quantity of the games on that system. And yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how things transition from here with the series. Alright, I am gonna run from you because you can go boom boom. So yeah, you're able to encounter wild wheezing here. So I believe you can only encounter wheezing here if you're playing FireRed. And if you're playing Leaf Green, you have a chance of encountering Muck, the evolution of Grimer, which is this little guy we encountered. So yeah, we don't really have too many chances to acquire either of these Pokemon. But I mean, they're not even among my favorite Pokemon in this game. So I definitely like their regional variants introduced in the later games. Especially Alolan Muck. That Pokemon is fantastic. Such a great improvement over the original design. And, you know, Galarian Weezing also has some good utility. Being a fairy type is especially pretty cool for it. Alright, so at this point, we have one of two paths we can take. I think we're going to want to take the path on the left. Just thinking about our options here. I tend to forget exactly which path we need to take at this point, but I am fairly certain we need to do the left path. Alright, Geronimo! There we go. Managed to make it down here. Who are you? There shouldn't be anyone here. Now, we're actually close to the exit of the Pokemon Mansion. However, before we leave this place, there is still one other section of this area we need to go through. And that'll be pretty interesting. Oh boy, we got a Pokemon going boom boom. Thankfully, Electro doesn't have really good physical attack, so it's not a good Pokemon for using self-destruct on. This guy, on the other hand, I'm probably gonna switch over to Wilma. Just because I think Weezing is a bit stronger than Electrode, so it could be a better self-destruct user. Alright, Wilma, just punch the gas bag. You gotta get all the farts out of it. Oh, don't miss on me here. And don't get poisoned. That's not cool. There we go. Weezing is out of here. That takes care of Ted. Ouch! So, I don't know about you, but pretty recently, I've been watching a lot of clips on YouTube from a lot of more adult-oriented shows, like from Family Guy, American Dad, and Ted, and just watching those clips again. My god, I do like a lot of those kind of shows. It's definitely an interesting thing to revisit every now and then. Especially with a lot of the compilations that I see on YouTube, because, you know, I've heard it said that the best way to enjoy shows like Family Guy is just to watch a compilation of all the cutaway gags, because none of them have to do with the story that goes on in the actual episodes. So you don't really miss too much just from watching the cutaway gags. I will give that to... No, Zoe can't take the Carbos. Alright, how about Kindle? No. Wow, you guys have a lot of speed EVs, don't you? Flandra? No. About Sarah? No. Okay, How about the slow Pokemon? Can we give this to Valium? Yes, he'll take the Carbos. But yeah, every now and then it's always fun just to watch those kind of shows, I feel. I definitely had a lot of fun watching those shows back when I was younger, so, you know, definitely a lot of good memories to have. And I definitely feel that for a lot of the shows, I don't know how to put it, I feel like the early seasons of Family Guy are the best parts of that show, but my god, the later seasons of American Dad, I think are genuinely some of the funniest episodes of television. Like, that show has really improved over the years and been just such a blast to watch comedically. And I also mentioned Ted. I think that show is also pretty cool. It's definitely got some fun humor to it. And as a prequel to the Ted movies, yeah, I just think it works really well. Like, the chemistry that John and Ted have and the other characters they have are pretty interesting. It's definitely a pretty cool show. Awoo! Also, I hear that Seth MacFarlane is actually directing a new movie, so good on him. It's nice to see some more content from him. Alright, Zoe, you took a bit of a beating in that battle. I mean, we're starting to see that Zoe is starting to fall off here, which is definitely sad to see. I like Fearow, but it's really not as powerful as other Pokemon in this region. Diary, September 1st. Mewtwo is far too powerful. We have failed to curb its vicious tendencies. They dreamed of creating the world's strongest Pokemon, and they succeeded. So the reason that the Pokemon Mansion is so disheveled and broken is because Mewtwo was created by the researchers here in order to be the ultimate Pokemon, the ultimate fighting machine. And with it being a psychic type, it's also highly intelligent. But also because it was made to be a weapon, basically. It has a very vicious and cold heart, where it only sees other beings as mere targets to test its strength. And ultimately, Mewtwo's power grew far too strong for the researchers to control, and it eventually broke free. I mean, things aren't too bad here. At least in the games, we know that Dr. Fuji managed to survive, and he's now retired at Lavender Town, which I like to interpret as redemption for Fuji, considering that he created this ultimate weapon of a Pokemon, which he obviously regrets having brought into this world. So he's seeking redemption by looking after orphaned and abandoned Pokemon. I really like that about the story development they have there with his character. But yeah, in terms of Mewtwo, that thing is still out on the loose. And yeah, if you're looking to acquire Mewtwo, it is the ultimate Pokemon that you can expect to find in this game. You're only able to acquire it in the post-game. And if you're looking to obtain it in Fire Red and Leaf Green, good luck, because you have a very lengthy side quest that you have to go through in the post-game after clearing the main story in order to finally be able to face Mewtwo. And that thing, oh boy, it's a powerhouse. Since we're likely not going to encounter it in this series, I might as well talk about it now. Yeah, Mewtwo is easily one of the strongest Pokemon that you can find in this game. It's a psychic type, just incredible stats across the board as you would expect from a legendary Pokemon. It is just a phenomenal powerhouse, especially in terms of its attack power and speed. It excels in special attack, and as you would no doubt expect, it learns a lot of attacks from TMs that make it just such a good battler. It's easily one of the strongest Pokemon you can find here in this game. It is that strong. Also, bit unusual just skipping over this thing, but here in the basement of the Pokemon Mansion, we're able to find a new Pokemon, Ditto. So we can actually find these things on some of the routes near Fuchsia, which is why I haven't gone for them yet. But there will be something we'll be acquiring, at least to fill up a bit more of the Pokedex. But yeah, Ditto is pretty interesting lore-wise. So there is a theory that Ditto was actually created as a byproduct from the cloning experiments done here in the Pokemon Mansion. For one particularly interesting reason is that Ditto's entire gimmick is that the only attack it learns is Transform, which allows it to take the form of the other Pokemon it is facing. Ooh, picked up a TM for Blizzard. That's a very powerful Ice-type attack, very strong, but also a little inaccurate, so it's kind of hard to recommend. But it is a really good, powerful attack. And yeah, Ditto having the ability to transform is interesting lore-wise with this theory that it's a byproduct from cloning Mew. Since Mew is actually one of the few Pokemon that can learn Transform from level up. That's actually why Mew is such an elusive Pokemon that has evaded being detected for so many years, is because it uses Transform to take the shape of other Pokemon, and that's how it's been able to avoid being seen for thousands of years. The researchers here that managed to acquire Mew's DNA to clone Mewtwo, they only just managed to encounter Mew by chance. And that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity led them to creating this abomination of science that is widely regarded as one of the most powerful and brutal Pokemon in all of existence. Yeah, the whole story with Mewtwo, obviously you can feel a bit of the Jurassic Park vibes from scientists going a bit too far in their pursuits of seeing what they can do that they don't consider whether or not they should. You also get a few vibes of the novel Frankenstein, which also deals with a scientist creating life and trying to do what previously only God was able to do, bringing life into this world. Yeah, it is very interesting seeing these kind of sci-fi parallels in this world. Like, Pokemon is very interesting conceptually. It's very much a mixture of both fantasy and sci-fi. And combining those elements together really does manage to form a really unique and really special universe. Conceptually, I obviously adore these games. Just such an interesting world to live in, but also, you know, it's very dangerous as well. Like, there's a reason you're told not to go out into tall grass unless you have a Pokemon with you. Because wild Pokemon will just straight up attack you if you're not prepared. I mean, we see that plenty from Pokemon Legends Arceus, where they make it very apparent how dangerous Pokemon are. Where if you're not prepared, just a wild Pokemon will attack you and even knock you unconscious. Which, thank God, that is the only thing the Pokemon are able to go as far as damage towards you. Because, yeah, it would be really bad to actually see some in-universe fatalities. But yeah, in terms of the overall just lore and feel of this world, it's both a very fascinating world, but also a very scary world. It's one that I very love conceptually, and why I keep coming back to these games after all this time. It's because I really love the lore and the world building, and just being able to go on these wild adventures with all these fantastical creatures. gods, I could just talk about these games forever. I just love Pokemon so much. And I hope that you, the viewers, also love this series like me. So definitely a fun time. We have one to hit that switch there, as that is required to open up the path out of here. So we're all done with the basement here, which if you're playing Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, you can actually see the container where Mewtwo was being held as it was being grown and experimented on by the researchers. And just the overall vibe of the mansion, my god, it is just so good in that game for what they're able to get across with just the overall vibe of this place and just how haunting it is. That this was the site of the creation of what can truly be considered an abomination against nature and the natural order of things. But anyway, now that all that heavy shit is done, we finally have access to the Cinnabar Gym, thanks to us acquiring the secret key from the basement of the Pokemon Mansion. And with that, this feels like a good point to stop this stream here. We definitely managed to get a lot of good work done here today. And it'll definitely be very interesting going forward, considering some of the unique things that we'll get to see from Fire Red and Leaf Green in a little bit. But yep, we got ourselves a new gym to challenge, and we'll definitely make that the next goal of our adventure. In the meantime, I'm going to try to train up a little bit more of our Pokemon, just to make sure that we are adequately prepared for the battle ahead. So I'm certainly looking forward to it. It should be a good time. And I hope you're excited as well. So definitely tune in for that. So yep, next time we're going to challenge the Cinnabar Gym, try to earn our 7th badge, and then see where else we can go in our grand Pokemon adventure. Until next time, have a good day and take care.